When I was in grad school, I took an editing class. So our class met once a week and we could bring in examples of things that we'd read over the course of that week that were incorrect. I think that's fun, and the reason that we did it there was not only to make fun of things that were wrong. Really, it was to try to help us develop our own editorial eyes. Like, if you catch a mistake while you're in a copy editing class, like, that's good. You're putting your editing into practice. But I work in editing and in writing, and I read a lot, books and also on the internet. We all read a lot. We all read all the time. All right, so we're gonna try that as a feature or as a one-off. We'll see what happens. But welcome to Errors in the Wild, Apostrophes edition. All of the examples I have are from either major publications or brands, because if you're going to be a major publication and you're going to tweet an error, you should expect to get made fun of on somebody's YouTube channel, obviously. Basically, all of the examples I have today, so what I'm going to talk about are plurals versus possessives. There are various other apostrophe issues, but that tends to be the big one that I noticed a lot, so that's what I'm going to focus on today. All right, the first one I have is an example from Ulta's Facebook page. This is not totally fair because Ulta is not a publication. They sell me eyeshadow, you know, so should they be expected to have flaw-free social posts? Debatable. As a person who works editing social posts for a lot of industries that don't have to do explicitly with publishing, I want to say yes, but either way, this is a judgment-free zone. This is just to expand our own apostrophe-related horizons and like discuss why things are wrong, not to be critical of the wrong thing in itself, although we're kind of doing that too. So there's this Ulta Facebook post. Hopefully I'll be able to put it on the screen for you. Do your mini-me's love coming into Ulta Beauty too? This post caused some interesting reactions, and there's a whole other conversation to be had about social posts and like, do we want to see tiny children with foil wraps in their hair getting color treatments done? But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're just here to talk about the pluralization of those tiny children. In this case, mini-me's. We're asking you, multiple women with children, looking at Ulta's Facebook posts, do your mini-me's, assuming that's what you call your children, which is kind of weird, whatever, do they also love coming into Ulta? We could have gone with children. Do your children love coming in? It all sounds a little creepy. Honestly, this kind of sounds creepy no matter what way you put it. But since they went with mini-me's, so if we're asking just one woman, does your mini-me love coming into Ulta, then that's easy and it's fine, we don't have to touch it. But since we're talking to multiple people, they have multiple mini-me's, and it should just have an S. Anytime something is becoming plural, it should just have an S. You should never add an apostrophe before the S, even if you think it looks wrong. A more general example of this that I see pretty frequently is with talking about decades. So if you were going to say, we partied all the time in the 80s, you should have an apostrophe in that sentence, but it's not before the S. I know I said we're only talking about plurals and possessives with apostrophes, but we actually have to talk about omission for this example. A fuller version of that sentence would be, we partied all the time in the 1980s, but that's kind of awkward and formal, and we're gonna know that you didn't party all the time in the 1880s. The other reason an apostrophe gets used is, of course, to show that something is missing. The classic example being it's, where IT apostrophe S, the apostrophe stands in for the I that is missing. So if you're going to change we partied a lot in the 1980s to we partied a lot in the 80s, it is actually correct to put an apostrophe before the 8 to show that you're missing, in this case, 19. And the reason for that is just because you're talking about multiple years of the decade, the 1980s, more than one of them just needs an S. It's just a plural. This is as good a place as any to note that, like, language is constantly evolving. Just as a disclaimer, I am talking about rules. They should be followed if you are posting social media posts for a major corporation. They should be followed if you're writing a blog article for a marketing company. If you're texting your mom, should they be used? Honestly, my grammar and mechanics situation when I text or, instant message or whatever is atrocious. You'll never catch me ending a sentence with a period in a text message, ever. Because that's, different. And the way that we communicate with each other like person to person on the internet is so different than a professional publication. I spend a lot of time on Twitter, I spend a lot of time on another social media site, and the way that sentences are constructed in those various mediums is wrong. Or, looking at it from a different lens, it's been adapted for the people who are using that platform to communicate with each other. Much has been written about the development of internet linguistics, basically, and the way that we use punctuation or lack thereof, or capitalization or lack thereof, to reflect tone, and how we, the internet generation especially, have like learned to read this subset of language and like hear each other a little bit better. It's really cool stuff, and I love it. That's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about, like, if you want to be correct, like say on a resume. So to adjust our decades example, I did a lot of volunteer work in the 90s. If you want to just make sure that that sentence is correct in case the person reading your resume is a weirdo like me, who's going to be like, oh, that apostrophe shouldn't be there. If you need to be correct, then that's what these examples are for. To use another example from my actual life, I had a note from a client on a piece that I was working on a couple of weeks ago that said, for the purposes of this acronym, which I'm going to sub out what it actually was, and we'll say that it was angry copy editors. And for the purposes of this, we're going to say that copy editors is 2 words, which is a whole other discussion that we are not going to talk about today. For our acronym, angry copy editors, the client wanted to note that their preference was for that to be capital ACE, lowercase s, with no apostrophe before the S. And I was like, great. If they'd said that their client preference was to have the apostrophe, I would have pushed back on that, because that would be wrong. Obviously, more conversations to be had there about preferences. There's a client I edit for who hates hyphens, so almost all hyphens get taken out of their material no matter what. That chafes me, I'm not gonna lie to you. But for them, it's a readability issue. It's also for consistency. Their website has existed for a long time, and it's just the way that they've styled things, and to change it now would be like a branding issue. But the point is, it's very unfortunate when clients have preferences that make things incorrect. But what are you gonna do? Sometimes you're going to push back and say, that's incorrect, can we not do that? And sometimes you're just gonna let it go. Now that I'm thinking about this acronym, angry copy editors sounds like kind of a fun, like, discussion group. Like, let's get together once a month and do this. Maybe we'll drink a beer, and maybe we'll cry about clients not using hyphens when they should. All right, the last example that I have is an Entertainment Weekly post. And listen, if you're a major magazine, I just don't think that when someone is looking for grammatical mistakes, they should go to your social media first. That's a problem. As a side note, if you happen to work for Entertainment Weekly and need a copy editor who charges very reasonable rates to edit your social posts for you, hit me up. All right, so this example actually has 2 apostrophes, one of which is correct, one of which is really not, and I'm not going to over-explain it because you'll know. The new trailer for so-and-so marks Chucky's return. How did that apostrophe end up in the word marks? I mean, what happened? All right, I really wasn't going to try to rant in these videos, but the thing for me about the Entertainment Weekly posts in particular is that you can see on the timestamp, if I'm able to show that, at the time that I saw this post, it was 21 hours after it had been posted. People make mistakes. I mean, everyone's always on Twitter about wanting an edit button because, like, sometimes you type and hit enter or send or whatever tweet, and then you see the mistake and you want to take it back. Gmail has their unsend email thing for this exact reason. But Facebook, it, like, couldn't be easier to edit a Facebook post if you mess it up. I obviously can't speak to this with, like, 100%. I don't read every single post Entertainment Weekly ever makes, but often I feel like when I see these errors, it's timestamps like time has gone by. There has been plenty of opportunity to just correct the mistake. That really is my main issue with this. Like, you know, apostrophe in the word marks is an obvious error, and it's a simple error. It's not a big deal. It's just like, who who, I mean, do they not ever read them again? And they post so many times a day, and I get that. But man, just, if you make a mistake, just fix it. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days. Anyway, Chucky's is obviously correct. Marks the return of Chucky. Cool. Just the one is wrong. But they're right next to each other. I mean, how is all I'm asking. What happened? By popular demand, I wanted to bring Lily back to help me illustrate this segment, but she's being weird about it. Come here. All right. So this treat is Lily's for being such a good girl. Ready? This is Lily's treat. There she goes. Lily is so sweet and so funny. I wish all dogs could be Lily's. See what I did there? Oh, look at all my trash. That's so great. This was such a good idea. Come here. Hey, come here. Such a good girl. Is this Lily's happy place? Ha ha ha. All right, so that was Errors in the Wild, Apostrophes. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time.